All right. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Dr. Nelly Kadagi. I am delighted to welcome you all to this event organized by the Network of Women in Marine Science and the Western Indian Ocean Marine Science Association in celebration of the International Women Day with the theme of embracing equity. I am excited to have with us a great lineup of panelists, a great lineup of speakers with various experiences and expertise, sharing their stories and perspective. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. Arthur Tudor, the Executive Director, West Indian Ocean Marine Science Association, to start with the welcoming note.
Thank you very much, Nelly. I don't know whether I'm audible, and I can't see my face, so I think I'm also visible. So Nelly, confirm if you can hear me.
I can hear you, Arthur.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Nelly. First of all, thank you very much, Nelly, and to members of the Women in Science of the Western Indian Ocean region, participants, the WIOMSA president, and the honorable guests who were invited. I want to say good morning. I'm pleased to see familiar faces. Professor Judi, nice to see you. Professor Judi was my minister when I was still at Kenya Wildlife Service. During those days, we used to have a vibrant organization under her leadership, so it's nice to see you again. So to all distinguished guests and all protocols observed, it's my honor as the Executive Director of WIOMSA to welcome you all. And I think we're in the company of so many amazing women. It's a day of celebration for our women in the Western Indian Ocean region. So we celebrate all the women in science and all the women who have made it to ensure that all right, there's some interference, Nelly. I'm not sure what that is.
I think all panelists should mute all panelists except for the speaker, please. Thank you.
All right, sorry for that. So as I was saying, it's our time to celebrate our women in science. More importantly, the women of the Western Indian Ocean region and the women in science family. We want to celebrate your achievements as we raise awareness about the role that you play in promoting marine science in the region. As WIOMSA, we can fully attest that women are better off when women get opportunities they deserve. And as WIOMSA, we've been at the forefront to give women the opportunity they deserve so that they can excel in marine sciences. Now, the region for a long time has been dominated by men, if you like, in science, but in the past decade, we've seen rapid or an increase in the role that women play in marine science. And that fits very well with our theme today of embracing equity, because WIOMSA has made it as a key objective to ensure that our women in the field of marine science make the greatest contribution to promoting marine science in the region. And through the WIOMSA gender policy that was approved by the WIOMSA board in 2022, we aim to not only promote the role of women, but also to ensure that we embrace diversity, promote equity and inclusivity, as well as recognize the differences that we have and leverage on those differences to make a better Western Indian Ocean region. So for us, equity is not just something nice to have. I think it's a must that we must have it. So as WIOMSA, we believe that women should always be able to reach the top, including in the growing blue sector economy. Right now, the region is talking about the blue growth, the blue economy, and it's in our interest as WIOMSA to see that women occupy the topmost positions in driving the blue economy agenda in the region. And WIOMSA will be conducting a study this year, hopefully, with support from the Women in Science, WIMS, to map out the role that women play in the blue economy in the region. And from there, we can be able to then come up with strategies and activities that will ensure that our women lead in promoting blue growth in this region. So having women in the leadership position, as I said, is critical to us. And WIOMSA has been leading by example. So in the last 25 years, the WIOMSA board has been led by, we have had 6 boards, and out of those 6 boards, 3 have been led by women. And so this shows that WIOMSA is committed to promoting leadership and putting women at the forefront in marine science. The number of research grants that we've issued out in the recent past has seen an increase in the number of young women getting research grants, and this has surpassed the number of men in the last 3 years. So it's also an indication that science, or marine science in particular, is getting more attention, and the women are playing a greater role in advancing marine science in this region. Now, why does this matter to us? It matters to us because when women take greater roles in science and leadership, then it also encourages those who are coming behind them, the early career scientists who are also part of the WIOMSA network, in the early career science network. So the women in this early career network will take cues from the women who have taken leadership roles in different aspects of the economy. And I think this will motivate them to take even greater roles, and that they should believe in themselves and also know that hard work actually pays when women commit and take stronger roles in whatever they do. So a gender-balanced WIO is what we hope to see, not just for women, but for all of us. And in this spirit, I would say long live WIO, long live WIMS, and let's have a happy Women's Day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Arthur Tudor. A very important welcoming remarks. I like how you say equity is a must, that we must have it, and ensuring a gender balanced WIO is our top agenda. We have a very packed agenda today with 2 panels. The first one on occupying powerful spaces, the second one on innovation and sustainability in business. We will welcome questions and discussion from the audience. There's the Q&A option. So please feel free as we continue to have these conversations and hear stories, perspective, chat with us in the Q&A section. And our steering committee members are up in arms, looking at those questions and making sure that they feed into our panelists as well as moderators. The panelists featured today in our first panel on occupying powerful spaces are trailblazers and change makers drawn from diverse sectors in conservation, policymakers, social enterprises, and business sectors. Their expertise and experiences will provide critical insights into driving the future we want to see in terms of sustainable growth, natural resource management, and the link between human well-being and equitable access to opportunity. That brings us today to the theme of equity. How do we embrace equity? Simply put, how do we ensure that there is fairness and justice in the distribution of opportunities, resources, and benefits across genders, as Dr. Arthur Tudor already mentioned? Therefore, I am excited to have this platform for a conversation and reflections to inspire action, change, and the hope we want. This morning, I'm also excited to be co-moderating this session with my fellow moderators, Susan Kier and Dr. Annelies Nieblers. To start with, I will introduce the first panel. We have Jeremie. Jeremie is the WIOMSA President and Chief Executive Officer of the Seychelles Conservation and Climate Adaptation Trust. Ms. Jeremie holds a Master's of Environmental degree from the University of Melbourne, Australia, and an undergraduate degree in Biological Sciences from Edith Cowan University, also in Australia. Ms. Jeremie is a highly skilled senior executive with a strong interest and experience in biodiversity conservation, ocean governance, science to policy advocacy, and the establishment and management of protected areas in the Seychelles. She's a trained conservation biologist who has been actively involved in national biodiversity conservation and environmental management, as well as the development of environmental policies and legislation in the Seychelles. Over the past 12 years, she has been active in conservation work for both governmental and non-governmental organizations. Ms. Jeremie is also a seasoned negotiator of multilateral environmental agreements, including but not limited to the Convention of Biological Biodiversity, Nairobi Convention, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, and biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction. She has served on many boards in the environment, conservation, and resource management sector. Before joining SeyCCAT, Ms. Jeremie served as the Director General for the Biodiversity Conservation and Management Division, where she focused on the establishment and implementation of all biodiversity-related policies and legislation. She plays an instrumental role as policy leader for ocean governance, including the work on the Seychelles Marine Spatial Planning. Welcome, Ms. Jeremie. The next speaker is Her Excellency, Professor Judi Wakhungu. Professor Judi Wakhungu is Kenya's ambassador to France, Policy, Portugal, Serbia, and Monaco. From 2013 to 2018, she served as Kenya's Minister of Environment and Natural Resources. Her legislation during her tenure as minister is globally unmatched. The success stories and deliverables during her tenure include the banning of single-use plastic bags in Kenya in 2017, leading the banning of Kenya's ivory and rhino horn stockpiles in 2016 to curb illegal wildlife trade, enacting the Wildlife and Conservation Act in 2013, climate change in 2016, the Water Act in 2016, amending the Environmental Act in 2015, and the Forest Act the same year, leading the Waste Management Bill, and many other environmental and conservation regulations. Professor Wakhungu is a recipient of many awards, including Honorary Doctorate of Science from the University of Reading, Ocean Awards in 2018, the Clark R.B. Bevin Award in 2016, Distinguished Alumni Awards from the Penn State University and St. Lawrence University. As Kenya's first woman pioneer in geology, she has the distinction of mentoring many STEM students. Welcome, Professor Judi. And our third speaker is Her Excellency Ambassador Hellen Gichuhi. Ambassador Hellen Gichuhi is the Deputy Permanent Delegate in the Permanent Delegation of Kenya to UNESCO, Paris. Over the year, Ambassador Hellen's key achievements include being the Deputy Head of Mission and Head of the Civilian Component at the East Africa Community Armed Forces FTX, Ushirikiano Imara, held in Jinja, Uganda. Leading a combined team of over 1,000 military, police, and civilian components, leading the Africa Group of 54 countries technical team at the UNESCO to develop a resolution which revitalized the Global Priority Africa program, establishing the Cultural Diplomacy Department at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and as an ambassador is an astute negotiator leading various bilateral negotiations. She was also a key contributor to the Sustainable Blue Economy Conference Secretariat in 2018 and has held other positions as Acting High Commission for Kenya and South Africa, Director of Cultural Diplomacy at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and Head of Public Affairs and Communication at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Ambassador Gichuhi is currently pursuing her PhD in international mediation and holds a master's in diplomacy and international studies from the University of Nairobi, as well as a bachelor degree in education from Kenyatta University, Kenya. Welcome, Mary May. Welcome, Professor Judi. Welcome, Ambassador Hellen. To get started, we are talking about occupying powerful spaces in this theme of embracing equity, and your journeys are a great representation of that lived experience. Starting with Mary May, Ambassador Hellen, and then Ambassador Professor Judi, in 2 to 3 minutes, I would like each one of you to give us a perspective into your story and your journey. How did you get into these powerful spaces you're in right now? We'll start with you, Mary May.
Thank you, Nelly. I hope you can hear me. So good morning to everyone. It's such an honor for me to be part of this panel this morning and to be in the presence of such powerful and inspiring women. So let me acknowledge the partners, of the panelists with me, Ambassador Hellen and Professor Judi. It is such an honor to actually make your acquaintance, though virtually. I have been a fan, I think, for many years, especially to Professor Judi online. So let me also acknowledge our Executive Secretary, Arthur, and also Dr. Chaki, our outgoing WIOMSA president. It's for me, with regards to the questions that have been posed and the question of equity that we are discussing today, it makes me think a lot about my journey so far, although still relatively young. I'd like to think so. I'd like to just reflect a little bit about my story so far. So coming from an island, you know, being an islander from one of the smallest countries in the world, I have humble beginnings, but I have always had the heart for and the passion for nature. And so even from an early age, I was always fascinated and quite curious about the environment, about the sea, about the forests. And this is where everything really started for me. And it came as no surprise, therefore, that when it was time for me to decide on a career, that I decided to venture into environmental studies and into conservation. And so this is really where my journey started. Before going to university, I was engaged a lot in, you know, local school programs on environment. Went to uni, came back, and as I really started working in the field of conservation, doing monitoring of species, working in the field and doing the science, this is really where I found that I had a great passion to want to see the environment of Seychelles remain as is, so that one day my children will also be able to experience the same things, the same values that I've had as a child. And also being exposed to a lot of international issues that are happening, especially the threats that pose biodiversity, gave me more of a zest to fight for it, not only for my country, but for the world. And I firmly believe in the concept of being a global citizen. And this is why I have engaged and I continue to engage at that international platform where I can have a voice. And this is really why I think I have been able to enter those spaces and become the person that I am, and also to occupy the position that I have, because I have a voice and I am able to speak out on things that matter to me, matter to the country, and matter to the values that I have around what a just environment, a just world, whereby everybody, regardless of where we come from, we are able to enjoy and benefit from all of the resources that are available out there, being natural resources, and make a life that is of a good quality. And so this is why I do what I do. And now with my work with SeyCCAT, I get to also not just be part of the conservation program in terms of putting in place legislation and policies, which I used to do, but now look more towards getting things done, bringing in the resources to support those ideals and those national priorities that are there in country. And it is through that I think that I've been able to make a name for myself, because I am willing to stand and I'm willing to fight for the things that I really believe in. So I will leave it there for now, and I hope that I'll be able to engage more with the other panelists over this session. Thank you, Nelly.
Thank you, Jeremie. What an incredible start. You're willing to stand and willing to fight for the things that you believe in. Let's hold on that thought and move to Ambassador Hellen.
Good morning, everybody, and happy International Women's Day to those who've already crossed over to the day itself. Thank you for the organizers for inviting me to this very wonderful event. I want to believe that we are going to encourage each other, we're going to uplift each other to imagine that we can occupy those powerful spaces. Those spaces are for us to occupy as women. So long as we assist each other, we'll lift each other up, and we help each other to reach those places that we want to reach. So my journey is a little bit different from my esteemed panelist who has just spoken, and I want to acknowledge their presence, the presence of every woman here and men who are going to speak today, because it is really a wonderful, wonderful topic that we're going to speak on. I'm a trained teacher, but I realized that I am not a teacher when I got into the classroom, because I did not have the patience for the slower learners. So what did I do? I went back to university to do my master's. Why? Because I wanted to join the UN. I wanted to say I work at the UN, I'm at the UN, all those nice things we hear about people who work at the UN. But while I was doing my master's, this person every single day walked to my seat and said, "You're going to be a diplomat. You're going to be a diplomat." And it really irked me to no end, because I did not want to be a diplomat. First and foremost, I thought the money was crap. Having come from the private sector, and I had all these stories about civil servants and how much money they were getting. And I was like, so I have young kids, I give up all that just to be called a diplomat? I didn't want that. But life happens. And so when we were doing our last exams at the university, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs advertised for jobs. And this person brought the application papers. And because I respected them to a great deal, I applied to please them. Guess what? I got shortlisted. Guess what? I went for the interview. And what were the questions? Tell us about the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. I had just done the exam. And it was really, I sang like a bird. So they finally said, were you given the questions? I said, no, I've just done the exam, because they were asking me what I did in that program. And of course, I got taken in. And my first shock was when I got in, because we have this warped idea that civil servants are really daft. So I went into this meeting all full of myself. I've just done my master's, and I knew nothing. I thought I knew something, and I knew nothing. This made me want to know what happens in the international arena, what are the things that they do, and I started to read. And my first assignment in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I was made the head of public affairs, 2007, 2008, 2009. Kenyans know what that means. It was baptism by fire. And so I had to really understand what it was I was talking about. So I read a lot, because if I was asked a question as the mouthpiece of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I needed to know what I was talking about. So one time they needed somebody to represent the minister at the 11th hour. And my mentor, who is Ambassador Thomas Molo, this is a great person, really. He picked me up and continuously encouraged me. He proposed that I go for this meeting. It was a troika of ministers. And I said, but I'm not in that field. And he said, but you read so much about it in meetings. You're the only one who knows what's happening. You go for the meeting. And I landed in this country, and they were expecting the minister because it was a last minute change. And I had outriders. you know what our traders are? I had those cups in front, and it's a very intoxicating feeling. They had the sunroof open, and I kept on feeling like I could come out and greet everybody, you know, hello, it's me. And we went for the Troika, and that was the first of many chances that I got to go and represent the minister. But what propelled me to the position where I am? I think a lot of people would want to know this powerful space. It's actually, the name is more glamorous than the space itself. So the ambassadorial title, when we were doing the Sustainable Blue Economy Conference, I want to believe several people either attended virtually or they were there in person. When we were doing, I was the only lady in the secretariat. So there was this boys club, and then there was poor old me. And I must confess that was a very difficult moment, because the men really were rooting for each other. I didn't have staff, I didn't have anything. But what broke the camel's back, I think, is the fact that on Saturday night, the event was starting on Monday morning, Saturday night at 8 p.m. I was told, Hellen, you have been in cultural diplomacy for a long time. We need flowers. We need a lorry full of flowers, because the person who had been asked to bring the flowers brought these dots, little dots. When you're at the back, you felt like they were rubbish and you wanted to remove them from the stage, because the room we were using, the Kenyatta International Conference Center, is very large. So if you bring the normal bouquet, it really looks like, you know, a bit of dirt in the front. So my minister at the time said, we want to fill the room with flowers. And I tried to get out by saying, but what about people who are allergic to flowers? She said, Kenya is known for exporting flowers. We want to fill the room with flowers. Networks are wonderful things. I knew this lady who supplies flowers. How? She supplied flowers at my best friend's funeral. So I told her, look, I'm in trouble. I need flowers. And she said, it's Saturday night. Are you crazy? The flower pickers are off on Sunday morning. I said, you know, if I don't get flowers, I don't have a job. Help me get flowers. And she got this person who had flowers for export. And I don't know what she told them. And the person said, okay, I'll give you flowers in exchange. I meet somebody. Networks once again. So I knew the PA to this person, and I said, well, give me 2 minutes. Let me find out if you can meet the person. I called, and the person said yes. And I got the flowers. We spent the whole of Sunday afternoon and Sunday night arranging those flowers. The place looked beautiful. And that one small feat, plus all the other things we had done for the Sustainable Blue Economy Conference, and me, not just me, and the Boys Club, and their ambassador title, because it was a wonderful event. It was 53 events in one. So it was really a great time. Very challenging, extremely challenging. Late nights, early mornings, but we pulled it off. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Hellen. What a journey, and just demonstrating the power of taking chances. Let's move to you, Professor Judi.
Thank you very much, Nelly. Thank you, Arthur, WIOMSA, and WIMS. Thank you, Mary May, and thank you, Hellen. What does it mean to occupy a powerful space? First of all, you have to build and be prepared for leadership. It's absolutely important to be prepared for leadership. My journey is somewhat different from Mary May and also different from Hellen, because I didn't have a choice but to be a leader, and to be a leader in whatever field. When we were growing up, we were given the carte blanche. B standard was inadequate in my family. It always had to be A standard, and I come from a family that's very dominant with women's voice and women's leadership. My career path, of course, was the sciences, and I've told many stories about this. I pursued geology, being basically the first Kenyan woman to even think about doing this, but I did this unknowingly. I had several mentors that allowed me to achieve what I have achieved today. I also was very much in a male-dominated field, and so I was the only woman. And during my career, which is quite long, I was not only the only woman, but also very often the first Black person or the first person of color. So that came with a lot of responsibilities. And the responsibilities meant that 100% wasn't good enough. I always had to score 150%. It wasn't easy, but again, with the support, I managed to do it. What does occupying a powerful space mean? Occupying a powerful space for a woman in a field where women are disproportionately represented means that you have to understand the power of that space. I would encourage women on this Women's International Day and this very predominant day of WIOMSA and WIMS is to take that power. Know that power. Take it, exercise it, and do not shy away. Intimidation comes every single day, and it will come for the rest of your career. But understand the power that you occupy. Take it. You will be criticized every day. The challenges are huge, but find that network that has been talked about by Marie-May, has been talked about by Hellen, that makes sure that you soar to the highest distances. Do not be afraid. Always know your pinnacle. What is your pinnacle? My pinnacle from when I was 16 years old was I would be professor. My pinnacle from when I was 16 years old is that one day somehow I would be professor. How I was going to get there, I did not know. I just found the right network, the right people, the right mentors, the right leadership. What was not in the cards was being an ambassador, but here we are. And you always arrive prepared, always ready to make a difference. So take courage, build your network, do not be afraid, and find those mentors, both men and women, that will support you, understand your goals. And whenever in doubt, do not be afraid to seek guidance from those that have gone before you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Judi. Very powerful nuggets right there that give us a very good segue, understanding the power of that space, not just giving 100%, giving more than that, 150%. Ambassador Judi, I'm still with you here. Your role as ambassador and in your previous position as Kenya's Minister of Environment and Natural Resources saw you deliver remarkable success, a great example in driving change and impact. For example, when I mentioned the banning of single-use plastic bags in Kenya in 2017 and spearheading the banning of ivory and rhino horn stockpiles in 2016. I know you've mentioned and you had started alluding to this, but how have you been able to thrive in these spaces that demand such strong leadership and decision-making?
First of all, in terms of the areas and the issues that you have mentioned, environment is a very tough field, and it's a field that you can't fake. You're either passionate about it or you're not, because being an environmentalist means that you're swimming against the tide. That's truly what it means. So it has to be something that you live, something that you're passionate about, and something that you must do. So it's not really unusual, because this is what I have lived, this is what I have practiced, that I was appointed Kenya's Minister of Environment, Water, and Natural Resources at that time in 2013. Our legislation, although in terms of promise, practice, and policies was moving in the right direction, but what it lacked was boldness. And so the stars just aligned themselves, and I was appointed, and I was bold enough and I was fearless to move this legislation. I must be very careful about saying that I didn't do this alone. I was the visionary. I was the general, if you will, that was moving and inspiring the experts that were already in place. Kenya at that time was extremely well represented in the sense that we had, first of all, and continue to have excellent teams in all the relevant ministries at that time. For example, in terms of even WIOMSA, Dr. Arthur Tudor was one of my troops and a very able one. And I had several. I had hundreds and hundreds of them that were patient enough, willing enough, and understood me enough. And they served as the experts. But I was also very passionate about not making any proclamations, but stamping my authority in terms of legislation. Only the laws make sense. So not only was I broadening my network in terms of what my vision was, which was very clear in all of the sectors, but I also made sure that I worked very closely with the executive. Of course, I was a member of the executive, very closely with the legislature, but also very closely with the judiciary. In terms of the executive, I had a head of state who understood, and I had colleagues who also understood what my vision was. But I was also very clear about always presenting my vision in terms of all of those communities. At the ministry level and accompanying state agencies, I had a formidable group of extremely talented Kenyans who at that moment in time in our history were looking for a bold leader like me. The policies were in place, but the legislation was lacking. Now, I approached my job in this way, in terms of the fact that this is absolutely needed, but if I pursue this path, I may not even have a job the following day. So the issue for me wasn't job security. The issue for me was transformative change for the good of Kenya. A long story short, I do say, and it's noted, that my legislation remains globally unmatched. And let me not say my, I want to say our, and our with the teams that I represented, our with the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary that gave me this opportunity to guide Kenya in leading formidable environmental legislature, most of which are still being admired today and mimicked today. Let me just take a moment to say something about the importance of the legislature. And for us, Kenya is bicameral. We have a National Assembly and we also have a Senate. At that time, and this is the period 2013, 2018, or 2017, if you round it off, both in terms of the Environment Committee in the National Assembly and also in the Senate, we had formidable, knowledgeable environmentalists that also understood what our goal was to be. This was to provide the best services for the people of Kenya, but we've ended up being an exemplar for the rest of the world. At this point, I cannot even tell you how many PhD theses have been written about our tenure during that period of legislation. this started from not only in Africa, it's gone to Europe, North America, and as we speak even today, Asia and Australia. So take leadership, be bold, do not be worried about security of tenure. Simply do and serve to the best of your ability. Every hour counts. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Judi. So many points to just consume and reflect. Transformative change for the good of Kenya and the globe. And just being in a position to highlight that it wasn't just your track record, but our track record, with you mentioning the diverse sectors and people that took part in making sure that that change was transformative. That gives me a very good connection to the next question to Mary May. In just 1 minute, as I pay attention to time, your track record almost resonates with some of the nuggets that Professor Judi has mentioned, working in these spaces as a seasoned negotiator on multilateral environmental agreements and national and international scale, an area that requires, again, solid leadership. So please tell us briefly, how have you been able to navigate equity complexities in just a minute?
Thanks, Nelly. And in fact, yes, Professor Judi has made this so much easier for me because, she spoke about being a Black woman. And that, as much as you would not like to believe in the international space, is still quite a daunting thing to do. And also you can add on top, for me, being quite young as well, that also makes it critical. And, when you first start going out into some of those big meeting rooms, in some of those small negotiating tables with people that have massive teams behind them, coming from Seychelles, often you going on a small delegation on your own. We don't have a lot of backing. You don't have all of those experts that some of those bigger delegations will have. So you have to be able to prove yourself over and over again. And yes, going 150%, 200%, working extra, doing extra, always to prove to people that you are able to be in that space. And for me, one thing that I've been able to do over the years is to know what I bring to the table. I come with my own confidence, and I try not to let people bring me down in terms of what they know. They are entitled to know what they do, but I know what I come with and what I bring to the table. And this is how I have asserted my space, my place, and my position in a lot of the rooms and meetings that I've been able to go to. And one of the things that I've found to be my forte is that I am consistent, that if I start something, that I will give it my very all, I will work hard. And I think often this is what people look to find in people, in leaders. It's to find the consistency, for them to know that they can come back time and time again to that same person and get the kind of support that is required. And this is what I do when I go to those international meetings. I speak about what I know. I speak about the work that Seychelles is doing. I speak about my work, and I help to bring about change based on what we know, what we do best, and we learn also from other people. So this is how I've been able to grow. And even in the past couple of years, especially, I have become an integral part of most of the negotiating teams from the African group, supported by the African Union Commission for Biodiversity, and also now more recently with the Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction, which I am very pleased to say that after many, many years, we finally have a treaty. And so in having been part of such big processes, and you're not only speaking for Seychelles, but you're speaking for the entire continent. So that really, really brings meaning to the work that you do. And if you do get exhausted sometimes, but what you want to bring to the table, you get inspired by the fact that your work is going to have impacts that are far-reaching across boundaries and far-reaching for the world. And for me, this is what really sort of makes me look past a lot of the difficulties that comes with occupying such a space. Being a leader is not easy. Being a leader means that you have to stand up to critique, stand up to those negative impressions, stand up to people not liking you, to working into rooms where you know you can feel that people are not liking you, but they respect you because for what you stand for and for what you believe in. And for me, these are critical things that I think will continue to remain as part of my core values as my career continues to grow. Thank you.
Powerful, 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 Jeremie. Thank you. And I pick 2 points. 2 points here. Knowing what you bring to the table, consistency, hard work, and really connects with what Professor Judi already mentioned, understanding the power of that space you're in, especially when we talk about the global inequities, when you find you are the first or the only person in the room that looks different. That gives me a great connection to the question I would like to ask you, Ambassador Hellen. One of your remarkable achievements has been in your previous role as the Deputy Head of Mission and Head of Civilian component of the East Africa Community Armed Forces, FTX in Jinja, Uganda, where you led a team of over 1,000 military, police, and civilian component. When I read that, I was like, wow. This demonstrates your strength in navigating powerful spaces and breaking barriers. I have 2 questions for you, and really quick, in 2 minutes. What core strategies helped you to achieve this? And second, given the progress on embracing equity and breaking barriers, what do you think still needs to be done?
Okay, thank you. So this was a new area for me. When I was requested to go and be the deputy head of mission, I was a bit flabbergasted to begin with, but I went in there knowing that I had something to offer. I think the 2 panelists have already spoken about the power of knowing that you have something to offer and that you are there because of what you're offering. But what I did, because this was a very new area, is that I listened actively. I listened, I respected other people, I gave them an opportunity to speak, and I listened actively and I took notes, because it was only in taking notes that I was going to learn what it is the military does. There was a lot of military lingo, and I was blessed to have somebody who decided to be my interpreter for the military lingo. So every day after we had the sessions, we would sit down and they would explain to me what the military lingo was. And I, as a good student, I took notes. The other person offered to teach me the different ranks in the military, because I'd never been to the military. We speak about peacekeeping, we speak about mediation, but I'd never really been in that space where I needed to speak to different people, you know, and they'd use things like J5, C.E.O, inject, CT, and I didn't know what all that was. So every day somebody explained what that was, and every day somebody explained what the different ranks were. And I asked questions. I was not shy in asking questions. Sometimes we assume that we are in this high office and we are supposed to know everything and we cannot ask questions. Sometimes some of the people at the bottom there have the answers. And I asked a lot of questions as well. And I built my knowledge. And I was pleasant. I wasn't a nasty person. Just because I was up there, I wasn't a nasty person. I tried my best to have empathy, empathize with everybody. And the military is very organized. So it was easy to empathize and to be nice and to have avoid petty little quarrels. Because let me tell you, in a small space with over 1,200 people, and you're trying to manage both the civilian component and you're deputizing, it can be a bit tricky if you're not able to handle the people. So in instances where I had a lot of people complaining, I gave them more responsibility, and that kept them occupied. When people have more responsibility, they feel they have been recognized, and they're able to then move on with you towards achieving. I use a lot of humor, as you might have noticed. Humor really breaks down some of the barriers that we might have. In the military, they are very They're very stiff, but they welcome humor as well. So I used a lot of humor. And I remember I joked with somebody where in their country, the taller the woman, the more cows they have to pay for bride price. I am very short. You can't tell it from the video, but I'm particularly short. And we kept on joking how I was only worth a goat, not even a cow. And that kind of broke down the stiffness that there was, you know. And I built relationships. Like I said previously, networks, relationships, relationships. Now, embracing equity and breaking barriers, while I was there, I realized that a lot of women don't see themselves in that space, in the peacekeeping space. And a lot of women are qualified to go into the peacekeeping space, but we are afraid. I think it was Professor Judi who said, don't be afraid, be brave. So be confident. My father used to tell us, be confident, you be confidently wrong. So when I was in that space, I remember I said a couple of things and I was very wrong, but I was very confident. And I was given that space because of being that confident, confidently wrong, you know. And women need to get out into the field, into more fields, and we really need to speak out. So a lot of times I find that when we go in the multilateral arena, the ladies don't like to speak out in meetings. They have the facts, they have the information in their heads, but they don't want to take the podium. They don't want to speak, yet they have so much to add, and they listen. And then when a gentleman says what it was they wanted to say, they're like, dang, I wanted to say that one. But we need to be brave enough to put our neck out on the line and to speak, because it is only in speaking that we shall be heard. We won't be heard when we are quiet. And of course, we need to lift each other up as women. It is said that we are our greatest enemies. Sometimes that could be true, sometimes it is false. But when our door was open for us, we need to be able to open doors for others. We need to be able to mentor others. I think I take mentorship particularly seriously because this is where I've grown because of the mentors that I have had. In our braveness, we need to also understand that there are pitfalls, and we need to be ready. When you fall, you rise up 7 times. Still you rise, however many times you fall. Thank you.
Yay, still you rise, however many times you fall. I've picked up several nuggets speaking up, but before I summarize those nuggets, I really would like to welcome our listeners to post their questions, comments in the Q&A, and then I'll be bringing on my co-moderator, Susanna, to pick it up from there for the Q&A. So Hellen, speaking up, lifting each other, making sure that we can empathize, learning bottom up, top down, emphasizing on mentorship and being ready in these spaces. Welcome, Susanna.
Thank you, Nelly, and thank you to all our inspiring panelists. I've already filled my notepad with so many nuggets of wisdom, and I know that this is just the beginning of a very, very interactive session. So we welcome participants to type in any questions they might have for our panelists in the Q&A function. And as that is coming in, I would like to offer a general question to our panelists. And we can answer this in order of Professor Judi, and then Marie-May, and then Ambassador Hellen. And just asking, seeing as equity cuts across transgenerational capacities, such as the ones that we have highlighted so far, what is the space for young change makers in occupying these powerful spaces, seeing as every capacity and each generation should be included? Marie-May, would you like to start us off with this?
Of course. Yeah, I think that would be a pleasure. It's one that's close to my heart, and I always think, like the young people, they are the next generation, they are the future. And it's really, really important that we empower them early, empower them with the correct tools, and also to be there for them, to guide them. A lot of times when we start as young people, we do not get the framework, the structure that helps us to make it to the next step, because a lot of time there is like the information power that happens whereby people hold on to the knowledge. But I find that when you actually impart knowledge to people at a very, like young people, you actually inspire them and they do better. There is nothing that is more fulfilling to see someone that you've helped, that you've mentored, surpass your own achievements. And it's necessary for us to create those kind of spaces for young people. For instance, on just my recent trip to New York, negotiating the BBNJ, I had 2 young people on my team, and they became so entrenched into the whole process. And it was so good to have that kind of energy around you. And having young energy around you is really good, because then they give you the drive and they add meaning a lot of times to the work that you're doing, because you see you're doing it for a next generation who believes in it, especially in the space of environment, in the field of environment. It's really, really important that we do that, especially for young women here in Seychelles. The young ladies in marine science are absolutely amazing. I am inspired by a lot of them and some of the achievements that they are doing. And I do my best in my current capacity as the CEO of SeyCCAT. And now I think also with the new president of WIOMSA, I hope that we can really help to celebrate women and celebrate young women who are involved in science.
Amazing. Thank you very much for that. And that's very encouraging for the young people in the chat. And I'm seeing so many commendations on all of the highlights that we have been presented. And here I have a question for Ambassador Hellen from Dr. Elizabeth Nyakundi. She says, how can you help other qualified women find their way within the competitive diplomatic system, seeing internship positions may be a bit difficult to come by? So Ambassador Hellen, do you have a response for this?
Thank you very much. Yes, sometimes internships can be a little bit difficult to come by, but sometimes we also have a very narrow view of what the diplomatic space is. The diplomatic space is actually quite wide. We have international organizations, we have the big brothers like the UN and all the other bodies affiliated with it. And many of them have different internship spaces, which they offer. There's also the volunteer spaces, which there is, the young volunteers, the young professional programs, which one can go into. I think the importance is to look out for the different opportunities that are available. If we narrow down to just say, for example, foreign affairs, yes, that the competition is very stiff for different foreign affairs offices throughout the world. I think if young people want to be diplomats, but the space is larger than just foreign affairs. Say, for example, even at WIMS, these are diplomats, but they just operate in a different space than the traditional diplomacy, because you are doing something for humanity, you are speaking out for humanity. So indeed, there's spaces, we just need to be able to know that we are not limited with where the competition is stiffest. There's opportunity for everybody. There's opportunity for everybody. And we should be able to look at the different opportunities that are available. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that really ties in with what Marie-May highlighted about taking up space and bringing younger women into this space and younger people alongside you. And Professor Judi, you mentioned quite a lot about mentorship and how you were mentored in your journeys. And there's a question here from Tumaini from Mwambao Coastal Community in Tanzania, who's asking how we can ensure women in the lower levels occupy these powerful spaces. So with the lens of mentorship, how do you think that that can apply in this context?
I wear many hats, but my main hat is I'm an academic. You know, I am a professor after all, and I have students throughout. And I have mentored hundreds and hundreds of students and continue to do so. Those that I know those that I don't know, those that I inherited yesterday, and even this morning. Mentorship is part and parcel of who I am and who all of us women leaders here speaking are. And we have to open those spaces for those that are coming after us. And it's mutual learning. There are new lenses nowadays. And I think May alluded to this. There are new analytics, new forms of thinking that the young people actually bring to the table. Some of us are a bit old school, given because, you know, we started a long time ago, but the challenges that we face tomorrow need new ideas and new analysis. This is what I do day to day. I have had both men and women mentors, given when I started, which was a long time ago, with fewer role models, fewer women role models in my field. I relied initially on men who were there for me, and then later on, as I was moving and ascending into the career, graduate school and so on, there were more women available. I haven't stopped, I continue. So mentorship is absolutely important. The issue of networking is also important. As Hellen has mentioned, finding opportunities to enter these fields is not necessarily easy, but if you have somebody that's already in that space, then that gives you the opportunity. The vision and the inspiration I have for continuing to see what further analysis do we have, what tools do we have available. Nowadays, we rely very much on AI, artificial intelligence. Those that have the tools, those that know the apps are the young people. So it is mentorship, but it's also a partnership in saying, this is the foundation I have, but given the tools that this young aspiring individual, aspiring professional has, together we can project, inspire, and create policies for a better world going forward. It's a mentorship, but it's a partnership.
A mentorship, but a partnership. That is one nugget that we can all take away. Thank you very much for that. And Kristen Nyangwaso has alluded to questions on how have you in powerful spaces, our panelists, been able to navigate a work-life balance, and this includes parenting and a maternal gap, if any. And this is in view of, given the demands of being a leader in these spaces, how do you maintain a healthy work-life balance, and how to, in her words, improve also on self-care in situations of workload that is overwhelming. So I can tap on Professor Judi to start, and then we'll transition to Ambassador Hellen.
Let me put it this way, for those of you young, aspiring women leaders, workload is always workload. So, and that's what the term is. What it means is that there is no right time for anything. So striking that balance is very difficult. The most important thing is to have the support network, have family and friends that understand and support your aspirations. It does come with many sacrifices that will have to be balanced. We all live in extended families, and that should not deter what one's aspiration in terms of professionally and what one's aspiration in terms of family ought to be. There never is a right time. Each career is very different, but one should not be deterred. Now, when it comes to the workforce and the work environment, I have seen it particularly in academia, which of course is what I'm more familiar with, where that time there is a gap and that your one's contract is frozen, as it were, to allow families for a woman to give birth, and also to allow not only maternity leave, but also most importantly, paternity leave. You know, we don't give birth alone. We give birth in terms of partnerships. So the workspaces adjusting to more family-friendly situations. But let me put it this way. There is no right time. Adjust to the time that's perfect for you. There is no example but your own and your own aspirations. And then everything else, hopefully, will fall into place. Know yourself, know your goals, and then your goals should always be time-bound in terms of professional aspirations, but in terms of also your own family. It's not easy. Discuss it with everyone and then work accordingly, and then just be prepared for the surprises. Challenges will come. It's not easy. Challenges will come, but hopefully you'll be able to have an environment that's conducive enough to work around those challenges. Do not be deterred. Do not be deterred.
Thank you for that. And Ambassador Hellen, do you have any insights onto this to add on to what Professor Judi has chimed in on?
I think Professor Judi has very eloquently covered the workplace and that balance. I just wanted to talk a little bit about parenting, because this one then becomes a huge challenge. I think I must confess I must have missed it earlier in my career, because I gave my all and would arrive very late in the house. And at one point, my son almost didn't know I was the mother, and this gave me a reality check. So what did I do? We sat down as a family and we agreed we were going to block time. We blocked Saturday and Sunday, and regardless of what was there, everybody in the office knew my Saturdays and Sundays were for my family. And there was one specific day I cooked for my family, because then they were missing out on mommy's food. They were growing up so quickly, time was moving so fast. So to try and balance that, I made it clear in my office, this day is my cooking day, so I would leave early. And Saturday and Sunday, I was not available because of my children. I needed to be there for my children. But I think Professor Judi mentioned about supportive family, extended family. Yes, I did have an extremely supportive spouse in this endeavor, and that made it easier for me. That made it easier for me. But I think communication is key, because children understand when you speak to them and you tell them, I am sorry, I won't be available for this, but can we do this instead? If they want to go somewhere, you can give an option. We can go today, but the time will be shorter, or we can go a different day and we can spend the whole day. And they learn to make their decisions early, because we are talking about empowering the younger people. Your children need to be able to have a choice. For them to make their decisions, they need to know that the choices have consequences, so to speak. So they can have a short time of having sweets and all, or they can have a full day going to the zoo and things like that. So it's just a matter of communicating. So I think communication is key, and blocking time, or if you're a parent, is also key. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ambassador Hellen. And thank you to all our panelists for opening your stories up to us and sharing your lived experiences. So we will transition now to our second panel in the interest of time. And thank you to everybody who has put in your questions in the question and answer section. Please do not run away. We are still tuned and ready to hear more from our panel. And as we transition into the second panel, we are talking about sustainability and innovation in business. And these aspects are very critical in driving socioeconomic change across different scales. And in this second session, we have an amazing panelist called Miranda Naiman, and she will bring a wealth of expertise in areas working with business empowerment for diverse groups. And this is especially relevant in view of the blue economy that many African and many areas in the Western Indian Ocean are focusing on. And we will explore paths to innovation and entrepreneurship to just enhance our collective action in embracing equity. So co-moderating with me is Dr. Annelies Niblas, and she's a country representative of the Reunion Island branch of WIMS. And welcome, Dr. Annelies. And I will begin by reading Miranda's bio. So Miranda describes herself as an unstoppable force for good. And she's the founder of Empower, which is a disruptive consulting firm that passionately provides talent, advisory, and insight services to clients across the African continent. She's a Forbes acclaimed Tanzanian entrepreneur with an academic background in education and theater for development, who strategically transferred her skill set to the private sector in 2009, where she founded Empower. She relishes connecting with nature by spending time on the beach, hiking mountains, and sharing quality moments with family enjoying great food. Miranda is the board director of CRDB Bank PLC and board chair of the Africa Women Entrepreneurship Cooperative that empowers hundreds of women from across the continent. She is board vice chair of CCBRT Hospital and an active member leader of the Entrepreneurs Organization, where she serves as chair of Global Learning. Miranda recently won the Tanzania Consumer Choice Award for Most Preferred Female CEO and is a member of the Africa List, a select community of next generation CEOs in Africa's most exciting growth markets. Welcome, Miranda, and we are so pleased to have you here. And I will now hand over to Annelies to continue.
Hi, Miranda. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. It's lovely to be a co-moderator. Miranda, I would love to start off by your profile. You describe yourself as an unstoppable force for good. That's such an inspiring phrase. Can you tell us about your path to entrepreneurship and innovation?
Thank you very much, Annelies. Thank you, Susanna. I'm still buzzing from the energy of the previous panel and the exceptional panelists that we've just heard from. Good afternoon from a very warm Dar es Salaam. I'm really, really glad to be here, so thank you for having me. I'll kick off with your first question, which is my journey to entrepreneurship. In a word, accidental. It was not planned. It was not something that I, grew up as a little girl thinking, I can't wait to run a business. No, I wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to fly planes, and I wanted to be one of the first Tanzanian women to do that. I did not accomplish that, but that's okay. I actually studied education, and just to kind of kick us off into the theme of innovation, which is about doing the same things in different ways, I transferred the skill set that I had in education and theater for development into a business. So serving corporates, it started off as training, corporate training, and then it morphed into recruitment and talent development, and then insight and data and market analysis, and then a huge CSR part to our business around youth empowerment and development, working across Tanzania doing that. It's been a difficult journey. It's been 14 years. We're celebrating our birthday in a few months. We've gone from myself on my own on a borrowed laptop with a very young baby to being the market leader in the Tanzanian market. And a lot has happened in between, I can tell you. I think what I could say to women that might be aspiring to go down the entrepreneurial route, a lot of the advice has already been shared, but I think collaboration is very, very important. Understanding who you can partner with and be able to move forward, especially when you have synergies and shared goals. I've very much been driven by my core values. So they are my northern light. When you're in business, you can be pushed against a wall, you can be challenged, you can be tempted in the wrong ways, and you need to always know what your principles are and where you stand. And I think this has been very important. My three values are stay in the light, which is about integrity and making sure even when people are not looking, you're doing the right thing. My second one is feed the family. I'm glad that we raised family in the last panel, which is very much about feeding my resources, my energy, my time, my money to those around me, my team, my immediate family. And then finally, service before self, which is about serving outside of what is yours. So outside of my family and my business, I also wear a lot of hats, some of which you've mentioned.
Yeah, that's really great, Miranda. I really appreciate your responses. These you know, these three core values, I think that they're really relevant in terms of, you know, any woman, any person delving into entrepreneurship. It's a very first beginning. In terms of the your last value, your service before self, you know, this can be linked into, you know, some of these mentorship programs that we've been talking about, the value of mentorship in building yourself. Can you speak about that towards the you know, the ways that your company has interacted with the youth, and how we can use these sorts of programs to continue to support women and young people to embrace innovative businesses?
Thank you, Annalise. I think there are the two ways that I could speak to, which is internal and how we mentor the women that are within Empower. And then there's the outward facing, which I will talk about Generation Empower briefly. So internally, I'm very proud to say that we have a heavy focus on building women, particularly in management. We're actually out of balance. We're at 80% women in management, female-led heavily. As we go down the chain, it equalizes a little bit. So we actually actively need to equalize our women in management because the balance is out of whack. But it is about having equal pay. It's about being very, very intentional about your hiring and making sure that you're bringing in talented women as well as men into your business, because diversity is what makes the business richer and be able to innovate and be a sustainable business. We also look at equal opportunity for promotion and being able to grow in the business, and really supporting women through our women's forum. We have a men's and women's forum, but looking at how the younger members of the team, my team is all younger than me, mostly Generation Z and millennials. They keep me very fresh, I can tell you, but they're absolutely incredible in terms of their professionalism and their ideas and their innovation that they bring into the business. But sharing with them what I wish I knew when I was entering the job market, being able to nurture and grow the young women that are in our business now so that they can excel much faster than I ever managed to. On the outside, we as Empower fully fund a program called Generation Empower. This is a 21st century skills program that's running in multiple universities across Tanzania. There's a full-time team that we're funding who are working in universities. They work with finalist students. This is 50-50, male, female, while they're in their final year of university. So it's making them more entrepreneurial. It's making them more employable, and it's giving them the skills that universities don't teach you. So emotional intelligence, project management, being able to present. It's not about writing your CV and winning a job. It's literally about how you would actually be able to excel the moment that you step out of university. We have a lot of incredible women that are also part of that program in STEM in particular. So lots of female engineers. They are also tagged to industry partners that are part of this program as well, so that they learn on-the-job skills, project management skills, working with other individuals, so they get that team dynamics experience. And this is a PPP. I believe that if we really want to transform the next generation and build particularly our young female leaders, we need to work with government, we need to work across private sector and with academic institutions. Nobody can do it alone. We cannot sit with our arms crossed and say, what is the government doing for us? We need to work together. And so I go back to your original question. That's why I call myself an unstoppable force for good. We can do so much when we bring the right partners together, if you have the energy and the passion to really make a difference. So Gen M is running now for 3 years. We've got about 1,200 alumni that have come through, and it's continuing to expand to other locations. I can speak to it all day, so I don't want to take up too much time, Annalise.
No, your answers are very inspiring. It sounds like Empower has really crossed the spectrum in terms of promoting equity and for women and men, depending on, you know, depending on backgrounds, depending on gender. We all need different you know, different aids, and so it's really great to hear the work that that Empower is doing. It sounds like, you know, we've heard in the last panel and in this panel, we've been talking a lot about network and what network can do in order to help people. You were saying that Empower has a forum for women and a forum for men. Are there some key activities that that these forums undertake in order to build equity?
Yes, internally, it's all about building the right culture, I think, in your business, and you can have a huge influence in how the next generation is able to really harness the right skills and the right attitude to get ahead. So in particular, the Women's Forum, it is self-led. So I am a participant of that forum. Each year, 2 leaders, 2 young ladies step up to lead, and we look across ourself, our health, and wellness. We look at charity and what we are doing to give back to other women outside of Empower. So this is in addition to the kind of corporate CSR, this is very much individual. On the health and wellness, we usually have an activity that we do once a quarter. It could be a fun run. It could be climbing a mountain or a hill. We don't all have the equal perhaps the physicality to be able to do that. And also conversation. So bringing people in for fireside chats, talking about mental health, talking about what it means to balance family and working, being able to learn from each other. So it's peer-to-peer learning as well. And we found that just having that sisterhood in the workplace is so different to what a lot of workplaces are like, where, you know, people will step on each other to get ahead and pull each other down. This is not what it's about. It's about being stronger together, being a sisterhood and being able to push each other up into new opportunities, but also being able to pull people with us. And I think that's a very, very strong, I guess, metaphor, if you will, that as women, sometimes we're not ready to be pushed up. We need to say yes, grab that opportunity, be pushed up. But then when we get there, we need to pull other women with us and not forget who we've left behind. So opening those doors and pulling other women into the room with you. But yeah, so far the feedback has been very positive. I would highly recommend any business, if you don't have a women's forum. We started the women's forum first, and then the guys said, hey, what about us? So they've got their own as well, and it's important. This is about equity. It's about both genders feeling that they have a place, they are seen, they are heard. We all have access to opportunities. And quite frankly, Annalise, we cannot reach gender parity unless we bring men and boys with us as well. This is not about a women's club and, you know, marginalizing men. This is about all of us getting ahead, because when women are empowered, we all thrive.
It's very inspiring words and very true. Thank you for that comment. I would like to acknowledge all the men in our audience. We have several participants, and we really thank you for coming here, because as you say, you know, it's this is the way that we move towards an equitable future, and where we all benefit when we have a place at the table. Thank you, Miranda. You know, another question I was going to ask was, you know, so you speak about, I mean, business is there's a lot of flexibility in business in terms of implementing policies that promote equity. And you spoke about, you know, but that it has to work across sectors. So, so private sector, government, we have to think about communities and individuals as well. In terms of the business side of things, do you have, how can businesses help to promote gender equity and to ensure that women in underrepresented areas have fair access to education and training for entrepreneurship? And I'll ask you, but I think I'd like to ask the other panel too, if they have opinions about gender policy. I think that this is, you know, we are a very diverse panel, and I think it would be great to have other inputs too. So Miranda, could you please begin?
Absolutely, and I welcome the inputs very much so. I think businesses can't do it all, as we said before, so it's about aligning things to your strategic imperatives. So depending on what business you have, obviously I've given you the example of what Empower does as a human capital consulting firm. Our focus is on talent development and looking at leadership, so we've invested there. Maybe I could give an example with one of my other hats where I sit on the board of a bank. What could a bank do? Yes, we could shake hands with someone and offer a giant check and buy some desks for a school perhaps, but we could do something more sustainable. How do we make sure that more women are financially literate, young people and women? How do we make sure that we de-risk women's businesses and that we are investing or providing capital so that women are able to build businesses that are sustainable and that they are able to make those repayments. Often women don't have collateral. And so the issue that we see, particularly in banking, is that they're not able to borrow and therefore scale businesses. So how can we start to de-risk women's businesses? I think that's something that banking is looking at, and particularly with a push from the African Development Bank, that is now starting to happen and money is starting to flow into the economy. So that's very, very important. I would also say that there are areas, yet again, if you're a bank, perhaps you want to look at investment. You might say our corporate social responsibility is to invest in young startups or women-led businesses, and you could have a ventures arm to your organization. So it really depends what you're doing, Annalise. If you were working in manufacturing, how might you be able to help some local women in the area to be part of that supply chain? Maybe it's smallholder farmers in the area that are bringing in raw products or raw materials, commodities that can then be processed by your factory. But how do you actively engage and include people in your community aligned to the business that you are delivering or providing that service to your community? And I think as well, in addition to that, it's important that we consider the internal side. How do you make sure your staff are also engaging in these activities? Not only is it motivational to individuals to be part of these activities, but it's also important to build that sense of collective responsibility within your team, that yes, we run a business which has a triple bottom line. It's not just about profit, it's about people, so the team and the culture, but it's also about the planet and how we engage with our environment and community. The triple bottom line is what truly makes a business sustainable. I can share that from experience, and I'm sure others have learned that too. If we only focus on profit, we are not being responsible to the planet and to the people around us.
Thank you, Miranda. That's a really inspiring talk. I like the PPP. Can I open the question up to the other panelists? Maybe Jeremie, could you please speak towards gender policy and empowering women through equitable policies?
Hello.
We hear you.
Okay. I was just wondering what, let me just turn back on my camera. Okay, I wasn't aware that I was supposed to speak on this panel too, so sorry, I had switched off my my camera. So in regards to having women in policy making here, I think in the Seychelles, you know, we are lucky enough that the women have a lot of support, and actually the women are doing far better in the field of environment. If you see in most of the, you know, the management positions, they're occupied by the ladies. So that there is that kind of drive, and women are very strong, full of empathy, full of emotions. And when working on policies, sometimes I think we do bring a foresight or a stance or a view that many of the gentlemen don't really have. We get extremely passionate about the work that we do. And when we are working on policies, we often make sure that we capture that people side of things, not just business as usual. And I find that it imparts a new take on policymaking. And even from different levels, from that grassroots level, from the young girls up to the levels of, you know, technicians and also to senior managers. When there are women who are involved in policymaking, the process is always somewhat smoother and somewhat more relatable to a lot of people. And so I think engaging women in policymaking should be the norm, especially I know in some of the other countries in the region where women don't necessarily have a voice. So having a few ladies sometimes around the table help to really bring the perspective of others, and there is representative, you know, there is that representation that is there that helps to help with the process. I'll leave it here.
Maybe I could add a little bit, Annalise. Obviously, if we look at our environment as well, maybe I can speak to the Tanzanian environment, but I'm sure it extends to the whole WIO area. We have a lot of foundational things that need to be worked on. So things like the Child Marriage Act, looking at gender-based violence. These are the basics, the foundations. If we haven't got these things right, then it's very difficult to talk about financial literacy and being able to build, women to be able to lead businesses and sit in government. That being said, we have a female president. We have a lot of female ministers. We have a lot of role models in our community that people look up to. Tanzania very much, I would say, respects women in leadership, and it is an emerging trend, and it's starting to shift and gain momentum. So we're very happy to see that. But we still have some foundational things we need to work on that are needed to make sure that we truly have equity when it comes to gender, even around inheritance and wills. There are many communities where women cannot inherit when their husband passes away or is a female child, a girl child, and only the brothers would inherit. There are cultural norms, traditions, and things that are just still not fully in place to allow us to have that equity. We've seen this shift very recently in Tanzania, where the Child Marriage Act now states that you must be 18 to get married. But before then, we were seeing child marriages. Now, if you have a young girl that is married at the age of 11, 12, 13, what chance might she have to lead, to be able to empower herself economically, to be able to raise children that are also going to be empowered women? It becomes very, very difficult, and it's a downward cycle. Of course, there's the education system as well, and I think that's being overhauled in our country at the moment, but it is a long process. It is a journey. There is so much to be done, and everybody needs to contribute in all sectors.
Thanks, Miranda, for that. Yeah, that final comment. And this is a good segue to pass over to Sue, who will pose some questions about young youth.
Thank you, Annalise, and thank you, Miranda, and also Jeremie for jumping in to give insights on policy. So yes, my question is focused on youth and innovation, Miranda. You've given us your experience with working with university students through your Empower Academy initiative. And so we want to find out, where do you see the opportunities for the youth? And how can we create relevance for them in the dialogue on embracing equity and digital transformation?
A great question, Susanna. I think there are lots of opportunities for youth at the moment, but it's important for young people to realize that they will need to go above and beyond what they're already being taught in academic institutions. The world has changed. I think it's already been said in the previous panel, technology is advancing at an exponential rate. And so youth or young people need to be able to harness those technological skills so that they can be part of this digital transformation and use it to their advantage, be able to earn economically from it, but also they need to be able to shift their mindset. There was this traditional mindset, you go through school, you are lucky to go to university, you graduate, you get a job, and perhaps you work in a bank. Those days are gone, I would say. There are far less jobs in the corporate sector. And so young people need to have transferable skills where they're able to earn on their own and also to employ each other. The most lucrative way to do that is to find a group of people, to create a consortium of people who have diverse skills, someone who's good with numbers, good with tech, somebody else who's good with marketing, somebody who's good with dealing with clients and being able to bring in business. And when you start to collaborate and work together, you can build something sustainable. In terms of ideas, I see no problem here. Young people have incredible ideas, but often get stuck and they say, I don't have access to capital, therefore I can't take this idea to market, I can't build it. I say that's wrong. I disagree. As long as you have a brain and you have your pairs of hands and you've got your consortium of colleagues, you can find a way. You can push through. You can apply for grants. You can look at making things organic. My story of Empower was purely organic. I've never taken a loan. I've never had any access to capital. But if you just go slowly and you have that discipline and patience to keep going, reinvest and reinvest and reinvest, you can build something that is sustainable and employs other people, feeds other families. So I would encourage youth to keep pushing forward, to seek other skills. When you've got that smartphone in your hand, Are you scrolling through Instagram looking at celebrities? Or are you on YouTube learning a new skill, doing some nano learning, picking up something that is going to help you and is going to feed your family and is going to make you step ahead of the rest? So opportunities are all around you. They're online. We didn't have these. We didn't have a smartphone in our day. Opportunities are amongst you in terms of your peers. Build those networks and those consortiums. And I would also say opportunities are there for you to learn skills that you do not get in your high school or in your university. So look for those additional skills, 21st century skills.
Fantastic. Thank you, Miranda. And this also ties into what Professor Judi had said about AI and tapping into the youth and all these digital tools that are currently being used in our different spaces. So thank you very much for that. As we transition back to Nelly to guide us into the parting shots for the final panel, I would like to ask and invite our panelists to come on board as Nelly comes on and probably reflect on matters of recommendations for networks like WIMS. Networks have really been emphasized in these talks, and that should really come out strong from our final reflections. So welcome, Nelly, and welcome to all our panelists. Thank you, Miranda.
Thank you, Susanna. Thank you, analysts, and thank you, Miranda, for that powerful session. While we're on it, I would like to appreciate our listeners. This is the Network for Women in Marine Science International Women's Day celebration with the theme of embracing equity. We've gone through the first panel with very powerful nuggets, starting with Dr. Arthur Tudor telling us that equity is a must and we have to practice it. And it resonates with Miranda's parting shot on saying equity cannot be achieved when we leave men and boys behind. It is not a women's club. I agree with that, and I want to appreciate the men that took their time to join us, because this is not our weight to carry alone. We heard about strategies, the power of understanding the space you're in now. We heard about speaking up from Ambassador Hellen. We heard about being in a position to understand what you're bringing to the table from Mary May. We pivoted to mentorship, and Professor Judi blessed us with the wisdom of saying that we cannot overlook young people. They are bringing new insights. We are talking about AI, we are talking about innovation, and it's not just about mentorship, it's about partnership. We talked about work-life balance, and we understood it right away in that assignment that there is never the right time. You pivot it in the way that it speaks to you. Talk to people like we heard from Ambassador Hellen. You have your family, your team, your colleagues, the close family. So these are your supporters. Talk to them and understand that this is your journey and you have the power to make it the way you want. We pivoted to how do we embrace equity, and we saw Miranda give us those 3 principles that really speak to the theme of today: staying in the light. How do you make sure that you stay on the relevancy? Feeding the family, which again resonates with the talk about network, the talk about bringing people with you. Ambassador Hellen talked about lifting others. As you stay in the course, as you occupy these spaces, how do you listen to the bottom up, your colleagues, to the people that we may think they don't know so much, yet they have something to teach us? How do you, as women, lift each other as we rise? That was very important. And then we talked about, again, yes, so we talked about taking chances. I already mentioned that. And then when it comes to business for young people, Miranda had very great nuggets. How can we make sure that young people are able to create? They have incredible ideas, and you have to find a way of making things organic. I was taking so many notes. I could spend the whole day summarizing this, but this is very, very powerful. Thank you so much to our panelists. And we will bringing you back again for the reflections from Dr. Gichuhi. But in this next session, I would like to welcome our next speaker, Veronica Bristol. Welcome, Veronica.
Thank you, Nelly. Good afternoon, everyone. A few weeks ago, to celebrate the International Day for Women and Girls in Science. Today, once again, we are thrilled to commemorate the International Women's Day. Whereas equality means providing the same to all, equity means recognizing that we do not start from the same place and must acknowledge and make adjustment to imbalance. The process is ongoing. It's requiring us to identify and overcome international and international barriers arising from bias or systematic structures. Today, we've heard about both the paths and challenges experienced by some extraordinary women and the strategies they employ to occupy powerful spaces. We discussed challenges that are still relevant for many women as part of the recognition of the gaps that still exist between genders. We at the WIOMSA WiMS network are working to embrace equity by being a united voice for women in marine science. As we did today, our network helps to provide a space to discuss challenges faced by women in marine science with the aim to identify priorities and to give a platform for action. Equity for women is essential for creating a more diverse and inclusive scientific community that is better equipped to address the challenges facing our ocean. As we heard today, women have made significant contribution to the field, but they continue to face significant barriers to entry and advancement. By addressing these barriers and creating a more equitable environment for the woman in marine science, we can ensure that the field benefits from the full range of talents and perspectives available. WiMS activities are diverse and have included the development of WIOMSA gender policy to promote practices that support women's participation, such as family-friendly policies, and address issues such as harassment and discrimination that can create a hostile environment for women in the field. As part of our effort to lift barriers for young women and to validate and take advantage of the learned experience of our community, we are developing a mentorship and mentoring program for women in the Rio region. Our network has grown significantly since our founding. We continue to support the advancement of women in the field, promote and foster a sense of community among our members. So may I take this opportunity to welcome everyone to WIOMSA and WiMS network. For mentorship, it is open to women marine scientists or marine practitioners at any stage of your careers, be it regardless of whether you are professional, you are unemployed, employed or self-employed, undergraduate or postgraduate students. All female members of the WIOMSA shall also be given the opportunity to join at the time of registration or registration of your membership to WIOMSA. Members to the WiMS are also open to any members across the world. We at WiMS believe that ultimately achieving equity for women in marine science is not only the right thing to do, but it's also critical for the future. We need a diverse and inclusive scientific community to tackle the complex challenges facing our marine ecosystem. And this can only be achieved by ensuring that everyone has a seat at the table. I am thrilled here today to launch the new logo for our network of women in marine science. This logo for our network of women in marine science, it represents the values, missions, vision of our network and serves as a symbol of our commitment to promote equity, diversity, inclusion in the field of marine science. As you can see, the logo features a dynamic design that represents the energy, innovation, and collaboration of our network. The use of the blue symbolizes our focus on the ocean that brings life, livelihood to the people of the Rio region. The waves represent the dynamism and the movement of the sea and the people that work in it. The green color represents the mangroves and other vegetation that lines our shores, providing a protection and resources for the people of the region. The gold is used to connect our logo to that of WIOMSA and to link us to the continents and islands in the Western Indian Ocean. The design also incorporates the female diver to symbolize the important role that women plays in marine science. As a network of women, we are committed to supporting and empowering each other. And this logo is a visual representation of our collective strengths and determination. The launch of this new logo represents a new chapter in our network history, one that is filled with opportunities and challenges. We are excited to continue to grow and evolve as a network and to continue to make a positive impact on the field of marine science. I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone who has made a part of our journey so far, from founding members to our newest members. Your contribution has helped us to get where we are today, and we look forward to continue to work together towards our shared goal. Thank you for being here to celebrate this exciting moment with us. Let's continue to WIMS and promote equity and inclusion in marine science. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Veronica. Veronica Bristol is our chair for the Network for Women in Marine Science, WIMS. Thank you so much with the launch of the logo and clearly demonstrating the energy, the innovation, and the collective strength and determination to be able to deliver what we need to do. In this next session, I would like to bring back the panelists, all of you. I can't do this alone, so it's amazing to bring you back to the table. So this imaginary table for reflections, and also welcome my co-reflector, Dr. Jacqueline Uku, who is a senior scientist at the Kenya Marine and Fisheries Research Institute, and also former president, the West Indian Ocean Marine Science Association. While Jackie is coming on, I have one question for you. Having talked for 1 hour, 45 minutes, I think, what is the last word, parting shot, that each one of you would like to leave us with? I give you 1 minute, those wise words that you didn't say. Welcome. I'll start with Ambassador Hellen.
Thank you very much. Parting shot, be your true north. Values, beliefs, purpose. My mom airlifted students to the United States when she was in an NGO after retirement, and not a single one person airlifted was us, her children, because she felt that we were not needy enough. The airlifting was for needy students. She had integrity. She was her true north. Be your true north. Thank you.
be your true north. Miranda.
Thank you. My gosh, be your true north. Mine would be intentional. So being intentional means knowing exactly who you are, but actually being that authentic person as well. Sometimes opportunities come up and they look like hard work. Roll up your sleeves, do what you need to do, be intentional because you want to invest your energy there. Use your personal values to drive you. And if something doesn't feel right, it is not right. So be intentional.
Thank you, Miranda. Let's get the work done. Jeremie.
Hi, I think my parting words would be that, there's enough room for all of us powerful women in this space. So for those of us who've been empowered, we need to empower new women so that we bring more women into this space. So that's really my thought, carrying each other, being there for each other, and really embracing the power that we all bring together collectively as women.
Thank you so much. And on having enough room for all of us for collective action. Professor Judi.
I'm going to say this because I live by it. Know your pinnacle, internalize it, embrace it, reach for it, and you will achieve it.
Wow. And with that, I have really nothing to add other than to sip into that wisdom and use it for myself. I always say that if there's no one else in the room that will take it, I be the first person to take it. Again, thank you so much to all of you for blessing us with your time and your wisdom, an opportunity that we could not have imagined when we started setting this event. I would like to say one thing before Jacqueline comes on. When I reached out to Professor Judi, I will say this. I reached out to Professor Judi on LinkedIn. I didn't know her in the first place, but I had the conviction that Professor Judi, if she has time, she will respond. And if she doesn't have time, I will understand. She came back to me right on that day and said, Nelly, please send me the details. I want to encourage everyone, like our speaker said, take the chances and go for it. Thank you so much, Professor Judi, for leaving that and being that pinnacle. Welcome, Dr. Jacqueline Uku.
Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning. I think some of us are still in the morning part of the day. It's been amazing. I would give a bouquet of flowers to each of our panelists if I had one live. We've learned, we've celebrated the day with your insights, and we are carrying away very, very deep lessons from each one of you. And for that, we are very grateful. I just want to make a few remarks, and you'll allow me to look at the notes that I've filled my pages with because there have been many. The first one is to recognize a champion long before we got on WIMS, and long before we even knew how to come together as women. We had one of the champions who's online on this session, and her name is Maricela de la Torre Castro from Sweden. And so I celebrate you, Maricela, because you started us on a journey. It wasn't only you, there were a few colleagues that started us on a journey to think about how we could work together as women, how we could celebrate each other. And today, I think I see the celebration coming forward, and we thank you and recognize your pioneering role in this. I would want to reflect around the decade of ocean science for sustainable development, because that is something I'm championing. After I've left my role at WIOMSA, I have joined the African Expert Group for the decade. And with all the doubt in my heart and all the niggling issues around me, I put my hand up and said, I will lead that panel. And so I got elected to be the leader. And so this panel speaks into a lot of things I've struggled with. And they have given me, I think, a new inspiration to go forward. But in the spirit of the decade, I would like to encourage the young ladies, the young men that have been on this panel, because we've heard from diplomats, esteemed leaders in our society. And just to understand that we have opportunities for science diplomacy. As ocean scientists, we are ocean diplomats. We can advocate for the oceans through the science we do. We can advocate for the oceans as part of the environmental advocacy that we do each and every day. And so we are very grateful to WIMS for bringing this forth and for selecting very esteemed panelists that have come on and given us just ideas about how to advocate for the ocean, which is often hidden. It's a hidden space. Many do not see it. And I keep on saying, as nations, even when we border the ocean, we are ocean blind. I've learned about mentorship and ocean entrepreneurship. Miranda, thank you. Excellent thoughts. And one thing I recognize is that women bring a lot of creativity to their leadership, inclusion and equity, and networks, and because we embrace a lot. And so we've learned, and I think you've put words into some things that we are not very always able to put words to. And so we are grateful for that. Miranda, as I come to close, I think you raised the issue of foundations. And I think one of our participants, Teresa, talked about women, especially in Lamu, that are educated. They could be up to master's, PhD levels, but will not be allowed to occupy spaces. What do we do to break down foundations? How do we work together to begin to include these women and show them possibilities, even within the limitations of culture? Because culture drives a lot of us in Africa. How do we, embrace culture, but work beyond culture to help women that may not be included in many spaces? And I think that is something we take away as a WIMS community. And finally, one thing I've learned and something I've seen in my life is that men are, at least in my generation, the men were the mentors that we had. We were mentored unconsciously, consciously by our fathers, our grandfathers, our brothers, our sons, and our uncles. And in many ways, they helped us, occupy. Sometimes they nudged us to occupy these powerful spaces. And so even as we celebrate this day as the ocean community of WIOMSA and beyond, I would like to recognize that behind every successful woman, there is a man who's been cheering her on, encouraging her, and making her feel worthy. And we celebrate these men that have done that for us. So I'll stop there and thank each one of you for being amazing. Thank all the participants. At some point, we recorded 156 participants that joined us. And we are thankful that people have spent some time to celebrate this day with us. It is tomorrow. We were just an advance party. I think we wanted to celebrate early. And so the party begins, and well done to all of you. And thank you once again. Thank you, Nelly.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jackie. And I take this opportunity to pronounce that this event is closed. Have a good rest of your morning and afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Happy Women's Day.
Happy Women's Day. Bye.
Happy Women's Day. Bye-bye.
Happy Women's Day. Bye.